Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that looks freaking great in yellow.
Yes.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a lovely couple of days, approximately 7 since you've last heard from us, and we have had a lovely time as well getting to know ourselves, each other, and this episode of the Facts of Life. Magnificent Obsession. Britt, how are you today?
I mean, I'm okay. This, let's just say this is lucky episode number 13.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a television show episode quite like this. This was so absent of anything. I felt like I almost time traveled, like I went back in time to not having seen it. I don't really remember what happened. I felt like there was a vacuum came in after I saw this episode and then just removed the memory of this because it's an aggressively non-anything episode.
I disagree with you 100% on this. There are a couple of things. For me, this is one of the absolutely most memorable episodes from the season.
Okay.
And it's not the most memorable. That one's still to come. But it is the last act. Everything from Blair going down in the middle of the night to the end is burned in my brain. It taught me that that's what a true friend would do for another friend. And the stuff leading up to it is a cautionary tale for which I wish I had paid more attention.
I see.
So on both ends of this episode, I found it, I wouldn't say profound, and certainly I would not say well written, well done, although there's some good performances in this episode, but mainly Blair. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My cat just went into a Tupperware. Oh, anyway. So okay. I thought this episode. I remember the up all night between Joe and Blair so vividly, and I loved how it concludes. Even though watching it and trying to analyze it, I am kind of like, what? But that being said, this one is memorable to me. It is unlike other episodes of television to me as well, which I think you pointed out. And perhaps, given more than just, a few minutes after having watched it, because both Britt and I waited till the last minute this time to watch this one. It might stick with you. Who knows? But yeah, we have a lot to get into before we get to where we're going.
No, we don't. Nothing happens. We have nothing to get into. This could be the end of the podcast. So Blair has a crush on this guy who doesn't give a shit about him. And then he calls to invite her on a ski trip, which she then hangs up on him. And then that's it. That's the end of it.
Wow.
That's the entire episode.
Okay, guys.
In the
so
midst
4
of
minutes
that,
into the podcast, we're done.
in the midst of that, Blair eats an entire roast beef.
Is that what that was? I thought it was a turkey. Now, I'm a meat eater, so I would say it looked definitely in the poultry world.
No, it at least looked like a sort of standing rib roast type situation, or like, like a tomahawk chop of beef. It was like she had a huge bone. But we're way ahead. We're skipping way ahead beyond all of the other very important nothings that happen in this episode that seemingly spends almost its entire time in the cafeteria.
Oh yeah, 3 scenes back to back in the cafeteria. I think that might be a first. Yes. It was, yes. Let's get into it. We have a lot to discuss, and I'm excited to
No,
discuss
we don't.
it
We have
all.
nothing to
Okay,
discuss.
I have a lot to discuss, even though Britt does not have much to add to the conversation. We'll see if she can chime in maybe with one of her famous Mrs. Garrett impressions here and there.
There's barely even many Mrs. Garrett in this. The only thing that I actually can tell you about in this, I did a modicum of research into bananas. So I can tell you about bananas.
I thought you looked up seals too.
Well, I looked up seals for one reason, and the same reason you looked them up.
Yeah. Well, when I texted you, you were like, "I'm in the middle of doing research about seals." So you implied that there was more than just the one question that you were looking up.
Yeah, actually, technically, that's true. It was more than one.
Okay.
And we'll get into it later.
Yeah, we will, because we're not there yet. Nobody's brought up seals. How absurd. So, old school crew here. We got Linda Marsh and Margie Peters behind the typewriter and Azad behind the camera. Oof. He's so angry.
I was actually thinking, I thought, this episode is so thin and purposeless that I thought that Linda Marsh and Margie Peters came in to the writer's room with like a Post-it saying, Blair has a crush. And then Azad was like, that's enough for me. We're shooting. This is our shooting script. And then took this one tiny little piece of paper with an idea on it and then said, we're just going to riff on this for 25 minutes.
I mean, to me,
Joe,
this is
put on that green blanket.
Blair gets an emotionally abusive boyfriend, and she can't get enough of it.
Yeah. So we could have had that. We could have seen that.
Didn't we?
We saw it for like 2 seconds. He comes in, he's mean to her, and then leaves. And then all the girls are like, what the hell's going on with Blair? What the hell's going on with Blair for 20 minutes? And then she suddenly realizes, maybe he's a dick. Okay.
All right. There are nuances in how we got to maybe he's a dick.
No, there's no nuance.
All right. So I feel like this episode is a cautionary tale. If one believes facts of life is capable of caution.
Yeah.
So open in the cafeteria where everybody's hard at work making signs.
Mm-hmm.
Blair's surveying the room. She notices that Tootie fucked up hardcore. She stapled a Save the Baby Seal sign upside down on a stick. She's entirely unrepentant about it, too. She just makes a joke that baby seals are too young to read anyway, as if baby seals are attending their rally.
Yeah, as though baby seals are responsible for murdering other baby seals.
Maybe they are. Baby sealicide. The word. Look it up.
All of the girls joke about murdering baby seals. They're like, that lol.
Do.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So actually, speaking of, baby seals don't murder one another, but I did read something about sharks recently. That sharks, this is completely irrelevant, but I thought it might be interesting. Sharks are one of the few creatures on Earth that do in utero cannibalism, so that the siblings eat one another's embryos to gain strength, so as to be strong when
that
they're born.
Sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah. Anyway, so now that you have that in your mind, let's keep going.
Yeah, I feel like we could turn that into something that would be like a successful horror movie. What is there a word? Is there a word for when sharks eat their own babies?
In utero cannibalism, that's the term.
Oh well, we'll come up with something catchier, like shark.
Okay.
Anyway, so Natalie, also not taking the plight of the seals very seriously, she makes what she believes is a hilarious joke about the seals begging not to become coats, and then Joe's just like, or a pair of earmuffs. It's like, okay.
All three of them are like, who gives a shit? Why are we even doing this? And the reason it becomes clear is that Blair has enlisted all of the girls to make these signs for her new boyfriend, Chad, who fucking sucks, but is a big environmentalist. And he ponies out all of this labor and work to the girls.
Yes, I was surprised that that was why they were doing it and that they actually had no interest in seals whatsoever. I also thought it was interesting. They're doing more than just making signs and pamphlets because Joe says that she left all her compassion where she left her spit, which is between Blair's thighs, but also on envelopes. So she was also doing mailers.
Yeah.
Like, they have a whole operation going. These are because they don't have enough going on, going to school,
no,
and also the slave labor that they're trapped doing.
Yeah.
Add this on. They got nothing going on.
No.
Chad's busy.
So that's why Blair could enlist them to do this other work.
Yes.
To
so
impress
Chad
her shitty
enters,
boyfriend.
and they're all chipper. They're all thrilled to see Chad at this point. Hi, Chad. We're happy to help you save your seals. And then he sees Blair, and then the two saunter towards one another, and she goes, "Hi, Chad," and he just lets out a guttural moan.
Oh my God. I wrote down every time they make it. So first of all, they kiss like aggressively. Like it's like, 5 to 8 seconds of like, not just like, mwah, mwah, hello, hi,
No,
nice
I
to
know.
see you.
It's like they're in Gone with the Wind.
Like, no, like tongue kiss, like gross. Like you shouldn't be doing this in front of other people type kissing. And he also, as you said, guttural moans. He makes noises like he's orgasming like Michael Douglas in Basic Instinct. It's like, what moaning into her mouth.
Are you not into that? You're not into like a little musical instrument going into a sexual orifice and playing a loud?
Yes, exactly.
Nothing like that.
Exactly, just like that. Like that.
So and Joe, and the audience goes crazy at this kiss. Joe looks racked with jealousy. Like that should be my lips on her.
No,
anyway,
she doesn't look jealous. She looks disgusted. She's like, "This is how the straights do it. Ew. I don't want to see that man's tongue anywhere. I don't want to see that man's tongue."
Chad is played by Gary Hudson, who actually has quite a resume. He's worked over 100 of things. He's got this. I got.
Wait, say that again. You broke up for a second.
From Newport News to Los Angeles, and his IMDb biography ends with this. He enjoys his frustrating time on the golf course, playing in numerous charity events each year, and still swings a pretty mean tennis racket. A big sports fan, he cheers for the underdog, the Cowboys, Joe Torre's team in New York, and the house that Jerry West built. What?
What?
Yeah, what the hell is he talking about? It's like he put secret jokes for his buddies in the IMDb bio. Very confusing.
So clearly, we've encountered this before with other bit players on The Facts of Life, right? When you look up these people who have 90 credits as like man number 2 or Blair's ex-boyfriend or whatever, or weird old lady that Joe becomes obsessed with, who have these unbelievably lengthy IMDb profiles, but they clearly run their own IMDb. They write their own content, and they're basically writing it for themselves. They're the only ones looking at their own their IMDb's at this point.
Yes, clearly. All of this guy, he does work his butt off. I got to give him that. He started with Skate 10 USA in 1979, and he immediately did a Heart to Heart in 1980, where he played hairdresser number 1. So, considering that was 1980, you know that he can play gay. After, because what hairdresser is not gay in a Heart to Heart in 1980? I mean, come on. He after this, he did Too Close to Comfort. He did A Mama's Family. He did Give Me a Break, Tracy Ullman Show, Dynasty, Matlock. He played Steve in Roadhouse. Do you remember Steve from Roadhouse? I do not. I saw Roadhouse about a year ago.
Roadhouse, the one with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah. What else? What else is Roadhouse? Roadhouse is Roadhouse.
Yeah. So let's just explain what Roadhouse is. Roadhouse is a wonderful movie with Patrick Swayze, who because he plays a bouncer for a roadhouse, a bar slash club, and he is hired by the, I guess, dissolute owner of the roadhouse to come and like clean up the bar because lots of like terrible elements have become infested in his bar, and he needs Patrick Swayze because Patrick Swayze is globally renowned for being, quote, the best bouncer in the world.
Yeah.
And so they bring him in as though that's a thing, right? And they bring him in, and the reason why Roadhouse is famous is because that's a ridiculous premise, but also because Patrick Swayze rips out a man's throat on camera.
Yes.
And that's the
it's
thing.
also one of the most.
They treat him sort of like a cowboy. It's sort of like a renegade, like an outlaw. It's sort of like he's killed a man, and it's like he's a bouncer. Like he runs a disco in like Long Island. You know what I mean? Like it's not that big a deal. Like he once killed a dude because he, brought out a knife at a bar. It's like that's the level of how serious Roadhouse takes being a bouncer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
no, I
it's
don't
also
remember Steve from Roadhouse.
it's also one of the more homoerotic movies I've ever seen in my life. Like, so if you're fans of that, check it out. Beyond that, I spent like Texas Ranger.
You are breaking up.
Stockings. He spent the 90s doing things like Jag, Walker, Texas Ranger, Silk Stockings, Touched by an he was on the TV show version of Air America, which lasted 5 episodes. Did a 4-episode stint of Smallville. The guy never took a break. He's got 4 episodes.
You broke up for like the last 30 seconds. I have no idea what you just said.
He shows up there.
Writing something down.
At me. So he spent the 90s doing things like Jag and Walker, Texas Ranger and Silk Stockings, Touched by an Angel. He was on the TV show version of Air America for 5 episodes. He did a 4-episode stint on Smallville. The guy just really never took a break. And he still doesn't. He's got 4 projects in post-production, and he did an episode of NCIS during the pandemic last year. So he also shows off his armpit hair in one of his IMDb pictures. And it's not like young guy armpit hair. It's like old guy armpit hair. So if you're into that sort of thing, you will be able to find that. And that is all I have on Gary Hudson.
How do you define old man armpit hair?
It's the armpit hair of a man that is over 45.
Can you give me a texture? Can you give me a look and a feel? Maybe a scent note? A note?
No, because I'm just talking looks. I think every armpit smells differently. It's like you could see that if they were to shave the pit, they could do one of those lady vagina armpits with the folds.
Okay.
So it just has it has worn through the years.
I see. It's a worn armpit.
Yes. Usually like the armpit hair has been tangled and it's been through a lot. It's not all fresh and nubile like the kids' armpits hairs.
Yes. Well, speaking of, that's the thing. So in comes Chad. They make out. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And he's some dude that Blair's now dating. Who, and to be perfectly honest, Blair's trying to impress him, right? Because she has enlisted all of her friends to make these Save the Seals, mailers, posters, whatever. And in comes this dude who apparently is going to bass her.
Yes.
And he is he looks 40 years old.
At
And
least. He has old man armpits already.
Yeah, he has enlisted 12-year-old girls to do his work for a charity. He's so lazy.
Yes, no, he's terrible. Also, he goes, speaking of lovely ladies, as Mrs. Garrett enters, and Mrs. Garrett's head nearly wobbles off.
Yes.
She nobody gets so sexually fulfilled by compliments than Mrs. Garrett.
I know. Yeah. And so so they make out, and then Mrs. Garrett comes in, and she's just like, "Ooh, I'm titillated by teenage people making out." And then she's just like, and then he gives her a couple and goes, "Oh, and speaking of you lovely ladies, hello, Mrs. Garrett." And she goes, "Ah, hello." Ew, Mrs. Garrett, inappropriate. I don't like Chad either, but like, don't be like macking on like a teenage girl's boyfriend.
I agree. I think she's just like, if you're gonna give me attention, you're going to get a head wobble and a long hello. It might not last more than that, but you never know. You could be lucky. Like, what's his name? The chef. What was his name?
I don't know.
I knew his name at the beginning of me saying that sentence. Anyway, Chad is creepy as fuck. And he admits he knows that Blair gets carried away, but that's what makes her so lovable. And determined to be even more lovable, Blair decides to take the opportunity to yell at Natalie for going so slow, which prompts Chad to tell her to stop abusing my volunteers.
Yeah, I know. Really gross.
He's so gross. Also, they're Mrs. Garrett's volunteers.
But yeah, but also, the thing is that so this episode is basically about Blair being like digmatized by this guy, right?
It's not about Blair finding her social conscience.
No, because it's barely about that. It's about Blair being obsessed with this man who doesn't care about her.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that we don't get any of that. We don't get any of that drama ever seen on screen. We just get Blair sort of fretting and the girls and Mrs. Garrett worrying about her. We don't see him actually being a complete piece of shit, except for once when he says, you shouldn't wear that yellow shirt.
Well, he also tells her to cut her hair off, and then he leaves her at a party, which we didn't see, but we do know that he did it.
But again, why? Like, just show it. Show him being
then they have
asshole.
To pay for a party.
But show him being abusive. Show him being bad. We barely get him.
I saw him and my body was just like cringed.
Ugh. No, he was barely there.
Yeah, and it was already too much. I didn't like it. Blair has learned. Also here, this is what I enjoyed. So Blair says that she's finally found her social conscience. And Tootie goes, is that what they call it these days? What is Tootie talking about? Her G-spot?
I guess.
Like, I couldn't think of anything else, but maybe my brain just was forced to go there. But, like, what is that joke?
This episode was full of those things where it was sort of like, is this a joke? This is written like it should be a joke, but it isn't. There's no punchline here.
Yes, and there's no payoff for so many things. Like we learn, Blair's learned the rich don't need to be idle. She proclaims that and makes Chad say, for some reason, that makes Chad go, that's why my family has become so invested in politics. Because of the rich being idle? Like the connections don't make sense.
No, and then Tootie's like, oh, hey, is to basically, I guess, to underscore the point that his family is very well known and very, kind of connected. Tootie says, oh, is your aunt that federal judge? And
Elizabeth Broxton.
And he's like, yeah. And she goes, my mom wants that job.
And what the fuck was that? That went nowhere and was super weird. And then she just like, oopsie. And then the next thing is even fucking weirder. Mrs. Garrett does internal monologues out loud and recalls when Chad's cousin was running for governor and he was doing so well until he was caught with that. What? Male prostitute? What?
Yeah.
I want to know. But regardless, Uh,
Chad's like, yeah, that happened. Yes, I'm part of that family.
well,
Yes, it
first
was
she
on the New
starts
York Times.
breathing really
Please don't
heavy.
bring it up.
She breathes really heavy when she with that
Yes.
and then also Chad basically acts like nothing's happening at first. Like he never stops just stuffing envelopes for these mailers. And that's when Blair tries to desperately change the subject about how he's on the student council board at Vassar and politics just runs in his family. And he's like, fuck off, Blair. Don't change the subject. Let's revel in this. Mrs. Garrett wants to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Right?
It
But
was
also,
super
like,
aggressive.
so Blair's trying to, like, basically, like, get in the way of Mrs. Garrett stepping, in shit in front of this guy by saying, like, oh yeah, this very scandalous thing happened between you with your cousin. And then Blair's trying to, like, ease the conversation away from it. And then he sort of yells at her, whatever. But, like, Blair says, oh yeah, no, he's already on student politics is in Chad's future because he's already on the student council at Vassar, which is like the dullest, lamest, most boring thing possible.
Yes. Well, she's trying to bring it back to boringness and not whatever Mrs. Garrett's hyperventilating about, which I'm still so curious. It's just like,
Yes.
just tell us. Who did
And
you talk?
then Chad negs her.
Yeah. Well, first she stands up and she's like, "Well, that's one way to get your name in the paper." She's trying to like, okay, if we're talking about it, I'll just casually, you know, brush it aside now, like a rich person would. And he's
Yes.
like, "Not if your name's Broxton, you idiot."
Chad Broxton.
He looks like a Chad Broxton. And then she tries to repeat it back all nervous. She's like, yeah, not if your name's Broxton. I mean, if your last name's Broxton. So stupid. So stupid. And she starts hitting herself with that
Yeah.
sign, the Tootie stapled upside down. And then he's like,
And
that's what
then
I
she
like.
lights herself on fire and flings herself out the window. She's
Yeah.
so
And
upset.
he's so into her weird pitying ways that he tells her she's adorable and lovely and has great hair. And look at that blouse. It's so pretty. Shame that it's baby puke yellow. Did they not have it in blue? You look so gross in yellow.
Yeah.
So passive aggressive. It's intense.
And she looks great in it.
Yeah, she looks great in everything. They come to the conclusion, though, that she looks better in blue and that this yellow garbage shirt that she's wearing belongs in the trash. And she says that she looks sallow, sick, and jaundiced. And Mrs. Garrett's like, whoa.
He didn't say that. And then,
Uh,
and then, and then, and then he says, it's just that, when everything else is perfect, when you wear something like this, it sticks out like a wart.
yes, if she's going to wear yellow with her yellow hair and her yellow skin, she's going to look like a wart.
Just all pus.
All pus. Oops, all pus.
I wrote down in my notes, I was like, I wrote down, I was like, I wonder if I have any clothes that make me look like a wart. I was like, should I wear my wartiest clothes? So I decided to wear my Baby Yoda top.
That's pretty warty. I'll take it. And then what does Blair say when she says?
I just wrote down. Blair just says, "Thank you for telling me I look like shit."
Yes. After he says that she stands out like a wart, she just goes, "Thank you," and the audience goes nuts.
Thank you.
Mrs. Garrett seems shocked that Blair has finally found herself in an abusive relationship. It took that long. But unsure how to bring this up around Chad, so she just tells the kids to gather up the posters and pamphlets for Chad. So as he boxes up shit, Blair meekly asks him if he'd like to go to a charity function at her country club. And he's like, the Hillcrest? And she's like, yeah, the Hillcrest. Of course, the Hillcrest. Why wouldn't it be the Hillcrest? And he's like, okay, as long as it's the Hillcrest. Weird exchange. It's for Save Our Streams. And he's into that, right? Because seals live in streams, don't they?
No. So Blair. So this is where I was like, now this was so sort of underwritten and moronic, because Blair is either blatantly stupid, or they couldn't, or the writers were so lazy that they couldn't come up with something, any other, charity that would make sense to go with seals. It couldn't be Save Our Oceans, but it's Save Our Streams. And then Blair says, seals swim in streams, don't they? And then he's sort of like, pats her on the, like, no, they don't. No.
I didn't know that.
That seals were only go in seawater?
I don't even know that streams were all freshwater until I did this research today.
Oh, so you did a lot of stream research.
Yeah, of course. Save Our Streams. It's a thing. So now that Blair's sufficiently humiliated, she ups the ante by letting him know that a lot of checkbook holding people will be there. And suddenly he's like, okay, when is this? She nervously explains it's 2 weeks away, but promises she won't wear that disgusting blouse ever again. In fact, if she sees the color yellow, she'll kill herself. She promises. And she's doing that thing where she sees that his interest in her is waning. So she's like, hey, you want to hang out 2 weeks from now? And so this way he's like obligated to. So then she's got to fill up those 2 weeks with love.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
It is sad.
He and then to top it off, she puts the incentive of you're gonna get these checkbooks. It's gonna be great. Rich people and love just doesn't mix. So he can't make plans that far in advance because he hates her. So she accepts a maybe, and she says if something better comes up, you can just turn it into a no.
Yeah.
He's like, you're the best. And Joe looks so shocked.
Yeah.
The only thing good about Blair was her confidence, and now that's gone. Chad picks up the box and thanks the women for doing all this work for him, then puts down the box.
Yeah.
And then does a seal impression that makes everybody laugh. Then picks the box back up again and leaves. Smooth blocking, Azad.
Yeah. He goes, oh, ladies, thank you. And the seals say, arf, arf. Seals don't arf.
No, you're like, oh, 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 oh.
No, he said arf, arf.
Arf, 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 arf.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like that was a
pretty
good seal.
Oh.
I have my windows open. My neighbors love this. All right, so the girls are still laughing when he leaves, and then they immediately stop the second he's gone, and that just gives by telling Blair, which honestly makes me like Natalie a lot more than I have the past few episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never forgive her, though. Anyway, they're all disgusted by Blair's behavior. Joe thought maybe she earned him he earned himself a magic marker up the nose. But Blair just pathetically says she's lucky he didn't say no. She admits she was nervous to ask him and hopes he has nothing better to do 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. It's pretty pathetic.
It's super pathetic.
I wouldn't want Blair either if she were this, besotted with me.
Yeah. Big same. And she's motherfucking Blair. Anyway. Yeah. Tootie is shocked and wants to know what's happened to Blair. She's kind of got into her very first emotionally abusive relationship. But as Blair describes it, she's, for the first time in her life, in love.
Well, she says it very meekly. Like, she says it in this way. She's like, I'm in love. I think this is the first time I've ever been in love. And everyone looks at her as though she took a shit on the floor. Like, they couldn't believe it. But also, Joe is especially like shocked at this news.
Yeah, she had her earmarked as like a coming out at 17.
As though Joe, hasn't been in love. Joe was a child bride two seasons ago.
Yeah,
She knows
what
what
about
it's like to be in love.
I'm becoming a seal. What about the time in Paris
Yeah,
with
David.
David.
Good old David.
Anyway, so so it's a new day. We're in the same location. Whatever. We're gonna do that a lot. Blair no longer looking sallow in her hot pink top. Tootie dressed like she's going golfing though. What the fuck is with Tootie's outfit? Her playing chess outfit is super weird.
Yeah, it's like Tootie and Natoots are fucking reenacting the Queen's Gambit. They're playing chess, something I've never seen them do before in my life.
And Blair is staring over Tootie's shoulder as though she has a deck of cards that you can see. Like you literally had probably a better view where you were to begin with. Why are you over Tootie's shoulder just to piss her off? But apparently that's her thing.
So she's trying to distract herself.
What?
She's trying to distract herself.
Yeah, but you can distract yourself in a way that doesn't bother other people. Like sitting, you want to watch a game of chess, fine, watch it. Don't stand behind one of the players. Anyway, Blair could easily be doing a number of things while she waits for Chad to call. And honestly, she's not being that annoying, but still, just a little look over the shoulder. It was so not necessary to me.
Yeah,
it's just
so basically, Tootie's like, Blair, why don't you just go do something? And then Natalie says she is doing something. She's driving us crazy. Not a joke. The audience goes crazy. They laugh so hard because they're just like, finally something for us to do.
Yeah, this is pretty joke-free of an episode. I'll agree with that. So Tootie tells her to go out, but she does go out. But she only goes out with Chad. Well, that doesn't count. People want her to have non-Chad activities so she can remember what a stuck-up bitch she was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Natalie says, when Natalie says you only go out with Chad, she goes, even groundhogs come up once a year. What the fuck does that mean?
Again, I wrote down, not a joke. What is this? This
it really made no
so
sense.
Underwritten. The other thing about this is, as I said earlier, like that this was such a sort of like empty episode that it felt like it kind of created like a memory vacuum in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking, in light of the past few weeks, in terms of just sort of the volatility and like how things have been going in, the pandemic and the inauguration and the riot and all this stuff, I've been sort of crowdsourcing, like with my friends being like, how are you coping? Like, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you cooking? What are you watching? And I was talking to my friend Katie, and she was like, oh yeah, well, I've been watching, my mom and I have been watching Bridgerton together, and the Netflix show. Mm-hmm. And she said, and I said, oh God, yeah, that's that. I haven't watched, I haven't dipped my toe into that. She said, it's like washing my brain. I feel as though my brain has been washed when I watch it. It's like so
dating Chad.
And I was like, the thing about this episode, I felt like my brain was power washed. Like nothing exists in my head anymore. It's all gone because of the emptiness of this episode.
I still don't see it, but Blair admits that Chad is an important part of her life. Natalie says, not part of her life, he's the whole enchilada. And the audience goes insane again.
Of course, fattily, they had to make it a fucking food reference, right? They're like, not just one thing, it's a whole enchilada. Do you like enchiladas?
Not really.
Do you know what an enchilada is?
You want to tell me?
So it's a corn tortilla wrapped around meat that is covered in sauce.
Yes.
And enchilada is the past participle of the Spanish enchilar, to add chili pepper to, or to season or decorate with chili.
All right. I looked up where the phrase "the whole enchilada" came from.
Mm-hmm. Where did it come from?
What was that?
Where did it come from?
Well, it seems to have been born out of the 60s, but it was popularized by John Ehrlichman, who referred to Nixon as the big enchilada in the Watergate tapes. And that's the closest that anybody's ever been able to come up with an answer to why we say the whole enchilada.
So is that sort of like, so when all presidents, their the first wives, first spouses, VPs, their spouse, whatever, they all get code names like Liberty is on the move, or the dove has left the cage, or whatever. Do you think that Nixon's was just enchilada?
Yeah, the enchilada's pressing record on the tapes. So
the enchilada's on the way to Air Force One.
The phone rings and Blair desperately runs to get it, and Tootie's worried about her. She's not acting like Blair anymore, which Joe thinks is a good thing, but Nat says she donated all of her yellow clothing to Goodwill, and she gave up eating bananas, but like even green and brown ones.
So one thing about bananas is that technically there's only one banana.
What?
Yeah, only one banana. All bananas are the same banana.
We all share it? It's like a hologram?
No, all bananas are the same banana. They're all the same genetically. They're all a clone. They're the same banana. There's only one banana.
Sure. There used to be different bananas, though.
So there used to be, but the one that is sold in the American stores now is known as the Cavendish banana, and it's basically the only one, the most popular one, and the only one you can really get in the United States, aside from the very small local growers of like the tiny ones or plantains or whatever. But the Chiquita Cavendish banana is the normal banana that everyone gets, and there's only one. That's the one banana.
That's sad.
Well, so the reason that happened is because there was I can't remember what it was called, but it was a company that was named, that became Chiquita, bought all of this land in Central and South America, like Guatemala, Ecuador, and they bought all this cheap land to farm, and so they started farming this one banana, not the Cavendish banana, but bananas don't like to reproduce. It's genetically very difficult to get them to reproduce because there's so few seeds in them. So what they would do is they would grow them via cutting. So the most successful plant was the one that then became the next tree. And so they're all genetically identical. And so they're all the same, which then what happens is that it makes them very vulnerable to pests, a specific type of pest or mold, etc. And so because they're not, interbreeding and genetically interesting or different and diverse, they're one genetic code. And so this old banana was then wiped out by some sort of plight, like some mold or a bug or something. And so they had to then move on to a different banana, the Cavendish banana, and that's the banana we have now. But still, we only have one banana. So now
why don't they move on to make a couple of bananas?
Just one banana. What?
Why don't they move on to make a couple bananas?
They should, but it's not economic. They don't want to because it's still profitable to just have this one banana. Please join me on my other podcast, Banana Hour, with Britt.
Britt's Banana Hour.
Britt and bananas.
Do you eat them and like do ASMR stuff?
I could.
Banana asmers? Yes, I think people would love that. So Joe thinks this isn't going to last much longer. I was certain she was going to follow it up with the fact that this guy has like 1 foot out the door already and doesn't seem that into Blair, but she doesn't. Instead, she goes on about how Blair doesn't get sweaty palms over a guy. And it's a confusing phrasing for me, but then when Blair comes in wiping her palms on her dress like a weirdo, With the fabulous news that Chad changed his maybe to a yes and she can breathe again. I'm like, oh, I guess I understand why Linda Marsh and Margie Peters chose that weird wording.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we go into the third straight scene in this goddamn cafeteria. Blair even got a phone call in the lounge and we didn't leave the cafeteria.
Yeah, why? Why?
I don't have an answer. It's the day. I'm like just done with this. It's the day of the big event, and Joe, Natoots, Mrs. G are cleaning up after the dinner rush, and poor Blair is just sitting at a table in her blue gown, staring off into the distance.
Just catatonic with grief in her hideous blue taffeta.
It is hideous, and the girl
so big. She looks like a linebacker.
The girls have to inflate her for like an hour. They're all out of breath. They're in the corner whispering about her. Nat wonders if Chad stood her up or Mrs. Garrett thinks he might just be late, but Joe confirms it is neither. She's just incredibly early, sitting there for an hour like an insane person.
Well, so what's funny about this is that I can understand being overexcited, right? You know, being like, I'm super psyched for my date, right? Like, I'm super, like, I can't wait to suck this guy's dick. Like, he makes my palms sweaty so that it's easier for me to give him a hand job. You know, like, I'm super psyched, right? But again, the logic in this show makes no sense because you, as a woman, you would spend that time, you know, doing your lipstick or working on your hair. You wouldn't just sit catatonic in the fucking cafeteria in your party dress.
While people clear dishes around you. It's just bizarre. Bizarre. Anyway, Tootie explains that this is her cause for concern. Blair was born 2 weeks prematurely and has not been early for a damn thing since. Why does Tootie have the information about how early Blair was born? Now, my best friend, for 27 years, we talk every day. I have no idea how close to his mother's due date he was born. And I will never ask him because even now I'm not curious, now that it's been shown to me how it could be used conversationally.
So, Dominik, when were you born?
I don't even know that about myself. Good
There
point.
you go. You know, here's the funny thing is that I was like, you know, when I talk to my friends who are like kind of into like more into like astrology than I am, you know, I'm kind of like, I'll read my horoscope. Let's say that, right? But then they're like, it's always like, oh, you know, I'm like, you know, the people who are super into it, it's like, okay, so what's your sun sign? And I'm always like an Aries. And like, what's your moon? I'm like, now we're beyond. They're like, well, okay, so I can do a reading for you, but you're going to have to tell me what time of day you were born. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know where my birth certificate is. I can't ask my mom. You know, it's just sort of like this weird, bizarre thing where it's like, who gives a shit?
When I was a kid, I remember once my mom telling me that 5 o'clock when Punky Brewster reruns came on was the same time of day that I was born. And I asked my mom, was Punky Brewster rerun on when I was being born? And she was like, no, they hadn't even made this yet. And I was like, whoa. It's just a conversation I recall from my past. So I do know what time of day I was born, just not in relationship to my mother's due date. Anyway, so Mrs. Garrett has a plan. First, she's going to ask Blair if she wants a cold drink. When that fails, she's going to ask Blair if she wants a hot drink. And then a whiskey drink, and then a lager drink. And Mrs. Garrett will sing the songs that remind her of the good times.
And then they're going to go tub
bad times. And none of this works. But she can see that Blair's down and wants to get her back up again. Reminding her that you're never going to knock Blair Warner down, she suggests walking around a little bit and then getting the circulation back in her legs. But Blair is just absolutely fine sitting where she is. She wants Chad to see that she's been subserviently waiting all this time so that he'll love her enough. that maybe one day she'll be able to go back to her old banana eating ways. Did you know there's only one banana?
There's only one banana.
Yeah.
So when bananas were no.
Chad enters in a suit, and some of the audience decides to woo him, not understanding the tone of what this episode's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And Blair jumps up delighted to see him after he goes, "A beautiful woman who's prompt. What more could a man want?"
And I wrote down, I don't know, blowjobs and a ham sandwich.
I got ham. I don't got bread. I do have bread. I bet it's old. I put it in a Tupperware, so
is it the Tupperware that has your cat in it?
No, that one had cookies, but I finished those cookies. Now my cat has cookie crumbs on his belly. He tells her how great she looks. He loves the way her hair cascades down her shoulders, and then suggests she cut it all off.
Yeah. He literally says, "Have you ever thought about cutting it all off?" I wrote down, what man would ever say to a woman, "Have you ever thought about going completely bald?"
You got to remember, this is 1983. That was very much in style at the time.
Yeah.
Apparently.
And
everybody's
then,
talking
Blair's
about
like, Blair's like, "No, should I?" And then Mrs. Garrett, like, apparently sees scissors like a table over and is like, "Oh shit, she might do it right now." Goes and gets them and it's like, "You kids better get going."
Now, I will tell you that my eyesight is not that great. And I wrote, "What the hell was it that Mrs. Garrett just picked up? It looked like an egg beater covered in blood."
So it was scissors.
Well, I appreciate you helping me understand what that bit was, because I didn't.
Because it was like Mrs. Garrett was recognizing that Blair is in such a delicate, vulnerable state of mind with this man that she is going that what just the mere suggestion right before going to a fucking country club fundraiser or whatever, that in her blue taffeta hideous party dress that this guy's like, "Have you ever thought about cutting all your hair off?" That Blair's gonna be like, "No, but I'm gonna do it this second."
Honestly, she's been crazy this whole episode. She might. Anyway, thankfully we're out of this scene and location for a minute. We're only in the lounge.
Thank God. And we're in the lounge, and the Toots and Mrs. Garrett are doing a puzzle. Yes. Like aggressively doing a puzzle together.
Yeah, they're really all over Mrs. Garrett.
Like Mrs. Garrett's in the middle, and then the Toots are surrounding her, bookending her, and they have the puzzle in front of them, and they're all sort of weirdly competitively trying to do it, as though it's as though this is like timed, as though it's like, "I'm gonna get more pieces together than you are. No, I am." And Mrs. Garrett's like, no, I am. Like, as though doing a puzzle is some sort of like competition.
I think knowing how the show goes when the girls get ready for a date and go out with a man that, they're not thinking is the greatest guy. They're like, well, obviously it's only going to be a matter of time before he comes home. She comes home and tells us the story of her assault or abuse. So let's just hurry up and finish this fucking puzzle as fast as we can, because we're gonna have to deal with that ASAP. Mm-hmm. That is my guess. They just know. Yeah. They know something bad is happening. One of the girls went out, coming back in tears. That's the rule. So They asked Blair how her night went. Blair says she's never had an experience like that in her life.
And the girls are like, "Oh my God, what happened? Did someone wipe off your Hitler mustache while raping you?"
Yeah, but Mrs. Garrett, totally unaware of this week's plot, as well as the history of what happens to these girls, is like, "I know, right? Fundraisers can be so moving. Oh, all those streams you saw, so powerful." Did they show you pictures of streams? Did you get to taste the stream water? Mm-hmm. Was the stream water there? Oh, you must have been so moved.
Very moving.
Yes. Anyway, but Mrs. Garrett's not getting it. She goes on talking about how she went to a Save the Whales rally, and every time she does that, she wants to take a whale home with her. And then that had me wondering, can you get whales at these things?
Yeah,
do
that's
they at,
that's how fundraisers work.
well, I mean, do
When
they
you go
have
to a when
like
you
you
go to a
bid for
Save the
this one
Seals,
whale?
so when you go to Save the Whales or Save the Seals or whatever, you get to take one home with you. That's the
Oh,
rule.
okay. I didn't realize that because I was surprised that they even brought whales to these rallies. But
Yeah,
cool, that's nice. Um, is this a thing in the '80s, or do they still do this?
they still do it.
Well,
I
not
have a
now,
whale.
obviously, because of COVID. You have a
I have a
whale in
whale
your bathtub?
in my shower. It's
Cool.
small.
Like a little whale.
It's a tiny whale.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So Blair explains that she introduced Chad to 3 people, and the third person that Chad was introduced to, he went home with. That dog.
Yeah, Millie Hotchkiss.
Sounds like somebody you'd take home at a Save the Streams fundraiser.
To be perfectly frank, that does sound like a rich person. That's the perfect rich person name.
Yeah, they're not bad at naming rich people on this show.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever accused them of that one thing. But so Blair ended up having to take a cab home, and Tootie's thrilled. Good riddance to bad rubbish, she says. Mrs. Garrett says there are other idioms in the sea, and then still rejection is a drug, and Blair wants Chad more than ever. Despite the
Mm-hmm.
snub, if he calls tomorrow, all is forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And Blair explains she'll simply die if he doesn't call her again.
And then that's the end of that scene.
Thank God. We're back from commercial break, and we're back in the cafeteria. Tootie sees Blair and shouts, "Where have you been?" As though something urgent has been going on. But nothing urgent has gone on at all.
Nothing has been going on.
So why is Tootie like, "Blair, where have you been?" Freaked out. What the fuck was that?
Because she thought she was going to kill herself.
Oh, okay.
She said, I'll just die if Chad doesn't call me again.
I guess I see your point.
And then Tootie's in the cafeteria. Blair comes back from school from class or whatever. And Tootie's like, where the fuck have you been? I've been worried sick.
Joe explains she's been in class with Joe, even though since she's going through cock withdrawal, she's not really there.
Yeah.
Blair sighs and knows that Chad didn't call, and so what the fuck is Tootie all worked up about? Anyway, Blair is still searching for whatever reasoning Chad could have had for leaving her at the party for Millie Hofstadter, or whatever the hell her name is. Is that it?
Hotchkiss.
And Mrs. Garrett very reluctantly informs her that Chad called, also calling herself a basically honest person, which I thought was very curious.
It was very weird. I'm basically honest.
Yeah, and
sometimes I lie to you.
Not even like I'm basically an honest person. I'm a basically honest person. It's weird. It's really weird. Anyway, the camera stays on the Toots for their reaction during this revelation, rather than Blair, who obviously the camera should be on. She's the one who really cares about this, but they're so shocked, and which Mrs. Garrett did not tell her. And she's like, "What, did you want me to lie?"
Yeah.
And they're like,
and then
"Yeah."
Natalie shrieks and says, "Yes, yes."
Yeah.
For no reason.
I'm with Natalie. It's not the worst idea, but Chad will eventually get through, and Mrs. Garrett will be found out, and she will lose Blair's trust forever. So I guess I get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the skinny here is this: Chad and his friends are going skiing in Vermont tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. If she wants to go, she's got to call him anytime before then. She is so thrilled, she jumps up to run to the phone, only to be Joe blocked. Linebacker pulling the check.
Yeah.
Blair's too delighted in her second chance that she can't see any red flags in this situation whatsoever. She's about to become some big, strong boy's abusive puppet, and she's been waiting nearly 16 years for this. She is thrilled. Unlikely voice of self-esteem, Natalie pipes up.
Yeah, well, again, at this point, it's like they're like, maybe you shouldn't call him. Maybe this isn't a good idea, right? And you should
Not
go.
just yet. Natalie says, let her go. She can afford the cab ride back from Vermont.
Oh yeah, she does
It's a
say
good
that.
zing.
And then who says that she should go cold turkey?
Natalie, because it's food.
Yeah, it's Fattily again, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's coming in
like,
a second. Mrs. Garrett, Blair explains it doesn't matter what he does. She loves him. But Mrs. Garrett's like, that is not love. Never seen you so nervous or anxious about what you're wearing. And Nat chimes in that she'd look lousy with a crew cut. And yes, we haven't discussed this. She would look terrible. Of all the girls in that show, I feel like she would look the worst.
Yeah, I don't think her face could pull off a crew cut.
No, it would be startling of all of the people there.
But also, Blair is just so known for her hair.
Yeah, I know. What a way to cut her to the core. I felt for her in that moment. Anyway, Mrs. Garrett explains that love's supposed to make you feel good. Tootie chimes in, says that Blair wouldn't treat anybody as awful as Trad treats Blair, and Blair basically treats everybody pretty terribly.
Yeah.
And she implores her not to go on the trip. And somehow, miraculously, this gets through to Blair. I don't know how. I don't know why it was
For
Tootie.
no reason.
No reason at all. She's just like, you're right. I'll call him and tell him no. And Joe is like, no, you're not. Fuck off.
Yeah.
You're not. You're never calling him again. You're done with him. He's done. He's dead to you. And then Natalie goes, yeah, cold turkey. That's what they were eating at night.
No, it was not a turkey. It was like a pork roast.
I swear it was a turkey. A pork roast doesn't have a bone.
A pork loin doesn't have a bone.
I don't know. I think that it was metaphorical cold turkey.
Okay, that makes more sense. That's way more poetic than the show could possibly think of.
I'm going to stand by that. I found the end of this episode pretty poetic. I liked it. No. Okay. No. Anyway, so
really? You mean standing up to your emotionally abusive boyfriend by just hanging up the phone and not going on a ski trip with him? That was cathartic? No. It would have been fun to see her confront him and say, fuck you, Chad. No.
No, she just has to give him no power. It's just like delete his Twitter and, get rid of the app, give him no power. Anyway, so Natalie's boobs are lower than ever in this episode, by the way.
Yeah, well, everything is like, this was one of the worst things I've seen on this show.
What,
including
her boobs?
Natalie's bra.
I think that she didn't realize that it was time to start getting a bra.
Maybe.
But everybody's on board with the cold turkey plan. That she just has to get through the next 16 hours of not calling him. It seems possible. She hasn't called him in a few days. Blair thinks that she'll make it. She won't make it. But Joe says, we'll do anything we have to keep your mind off him. Anything. Maybe I'll eat your pussy for 16 hours straight. How does that sound?
Literally wrote down, Blair's like, you mean go down on me all night?
Because everybody knows what Joe's thinking. Anyway.
Yeah. And
Smash
to be
cuts
perfectly frank, that is very distracting. And that is what Joe should do.
16 hours is a bit much, but if she can do it, then I'm all for it. My cat's trying to dive bomb.
How many orgasms that is. Oh, hi, Greg.
Anyway, so we smash cut to Blair giving Joe a makeover. Blair wants to see what it's like to be with a lipstick lesbian for once, instead of being with a dipstick lesbian. That's what Joe is. So Tootie announces that she is going to not just take a picture of Joe, but in this humiliating situation, but also she announces that she's going to show it to everybody because they're never going to believe that we got Joe into makeup. Do you not know how to work taking a blackmail photo or trying to take a candid photo? You don't outright say, I've got to get a picture of this, first of all. And then your second mistake was to then say what you're going to do with that picture. Shame Joe amongst all their friends. Is you want the picture, take the picture, then be like, oops, did you not want me to take that picture? But instead, she just rubs it in, takes the picture anyway, and then Joe is like QAnon. Like this is really like whatever. Anyway, that's at least how I saw that. Blair announces what's happening in case we're confused. Making over Joe was a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and then she's like putting makeup on her, and then she's squeezing her face, and she's like, "Your face is like wet clay," which no one ever wants to hear that. Your face is like wet clay.
She was really smushing that clay. She was taking it literally when she was like, "This is like making a meatloaf." She's like,
yeah, no, she was squeezing it. She's like, "It's like I can sculpt it into anything." And then Joe says, "Hey, you're not making a meatloaf." At least it wasn't Natalie saying a food thing.
That's true. I made a meatloaf just the other day.
And what did you put in it?
I crushed this meatloaf. I was really pleased with it. So, my meatloaf is half pork sausage, half ground beef, and then I make a well in it. I put eggs, breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, some seasoning, salt, pepper, and then I make a well, and then I fill that well with Polly-O string cheese. Then I adhere that together with some ricotta cheese, and I stole your tip to put a little lemon, put a little salt and pepper, a little garlic. What else you put in there? Anything else?
Lemon zest. Yeah.
So I did that. That was amazing. Then I covered that with Parmesan cheese. Then, boop, more meatloaf on top of that. So then covered that in tomato sauce and baked it. Crushed it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds
There's
good.
nothing like hacking into a meatloaf and then watching all the cheese go out.
Wow. Must have been like a, bukkake shoot.
Why you gotta make everything dirty? Even something as innocent and lovely as my meatloaf.
Your meatloaf is not innocent or lovely.
Fair. Anyway, so but who is lovely is Joe. Tootie says she looks cute, and Joe goes, "Great, that's what I want on my tombstone. She looked cute." Why is Joe bringing death into this?
I don't know.
Like who what a weird.
Also, you know what, Joe? Learn to take a fucking compliment.
Yeah, but Tootie gets even weirder. This is why Joe should have just said thank you, because then she got this. No, you look darling. I'd bet you look great with short hair. It's really in now.
Oh,
early 1983 was short hair was all anybody could talk about.
And then what happens? What is that? When Tootie says that?
Well, also Tootie has short hair, so I felt like that was also weird. But the audience reaction is, oh,
because it's triggering.
Yes.
That statement reminds Blair so much of bad Chad.
Because that's verbatim what Chad said. In fact, so much so that it's so verbatim that I thought that Tootie was making fun of Chad. Like, I thought that was where we were going with this bit. The short hair, it's so in right now, right? Only losers say that, Blair.
Nope.
I didn't know where they were going, but nothing really was making too much sense at this point. And Blair asks how long it's been. It's been an hour and a half.
I feel like this episode has been an hour and a half at this point.
But there's only an hour and a half till dinner, which means they'll be able to be put to work once again, which is exciting for them. And then time will fly because they'll be doing all that manual labor. And Blair sighs, her life is purgatory. She's so rich, she's so beautiful. How did this happen to her? Was there really no way she could have just not paid everybody's cost of ruining the room, and then all of them would be free and clear and not assigned to this weird dinner plate purgatory ever again?
You'd think.
You would think. But instead, we just leave that scene and we follow Blair into the middle of the night. She's walking up to the kitchen. She's walking through to the cafeteria and then to the lounge where she picks up and then puts down the telephone receiver quite dramatically. She walks back to the kitchen. She gets a cold turkey carcass from the fridge. I didn't even make the connection, but my notes have cold turkey, so I think I'm right.
Okay, you can. I'll allow it. I'll give you that.
because also meat. I deal with a lot of meat.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, so she grabs the cold turkey carcass from the fridge and then begins to hack at it in the dark. And eventually
Yeah.
Joe comes down wearing a neon green blanket. And I kind of thought this was like the only time that wardrobe was like, we can finally put Joe in color. They're going to finally make her look bright and cheery for once because we wrapped her in a blanket.
No, I know. And then, Blair's just like, listen, I want to eat my goddamn feelings in peace. Okay. Can I just eat my fucking turkey leg on my own? And Joe's like, and she tries to shoo her. She's just like, go to bed, get out of here. Yeah. And then Joe's just like watching her and following her around, like tailgating her out of the scene. She's just like Blair's just like, I want to eat my turkey carcass by myself, please. And Joe's just like right behind her on her ass, like, no, I'm coming with you. I need to see you through.
And then Blair's goes, like, you are so suspicious. Yeah. She tries to make that into her catchphrase for the second half of this episode.
And she goes, go to bed. And Joe says, I'm not tired. And then where do we end up? We end up in the lounge.
Yes. Well, then she sets her food down at a table in the cafeteria, and then she's like, nah, and she picks it up and goes to the lounge, and Joe's like, hey. And then Blair is like, I want to sit where it's comfy. Again, she goes, you are so suspicious. Weird. Anyway, so they go into the lounge, and Blair puts her carcass on the table, and then Joe just kicks her feet up directly next to the carcass, which I thought was gross.
It was gross.
But it doesn't stop Blair from hacking into it, and then time dissolve, and that turkey's been eaten. But now Joe and Blair are having a heart-to-heart, and not the kind of heart-to-heart that Chad guest starred in 1980 when he played hairdresser number 1. This is an episode I remember fondly from this season, but it's really come kind of from this moment to the rest of the episode that I remember.
And I understand that because this is the most poignant parts, but like, again, I wanted to see Blair confront Chad. I wanted to see Chad be more abusive. I wanted to see Blair stick up for herself rather than just hanging up the phone on Chad, And I get like having Joe be like kind of a shoulder to cry on or whatever, or like, basically keeping her up all night, so that she doesn't, or distract her or whatever, so that she doesn't think about,
there was one of those time lapses where it was just like, they just cut that out.
Because by the third time lapse, they're both under the covers together.
Mm-hmm. There was at least fingering. This was at least the first time they were fingering each other. At least.
Or at least dry hump.
I hope. Anyway, so Blair opens up to how crazy she is about him. She remembers every second of their dates. She thinks about him all the time. When she's setting her hair, doing homework, taking out the garbage. She says especially when taking out the garbage, which I thought was so weird. And it kind of sounded like the original was supposed to be like, especially when like riding my horse. Something like that,
Yeah.
My pony.
I did like the, I think about him all the time, especially while taking a shit. Like, it's like this it was like, especially when taking out the trash. That's when I think most about Chad. What? Well, so the funny thing is that, especially since his name is Chad and he's such a piece of shit, is that it reminded me of the Pete Davidson, sketch from SNL where he's Chad, where it's like, the world's hot. It's like Beyonce, or Rihanna is like throwing herself at him, and he's just like, okay. This guy is the anti-Chad. He's the worst.
Hanging Chad.
He's a hanging Chad. He's like, you know what, Blair? You're prompt, but stupid, not rich enough, and you would be better bald.
Bald and in blue. She keeps thinking,
what if I look like warts?
She was thinking, what if I said this? What if I said that? She never realized there was so much wrong with her until Chad, despite the fact that Joe has been telling her what's wrong with her for 3 years. And Joe says, maybe there wasn't anything wrong with you until Chad. Hey. Anyway, another time dissolved. Joe looks like she really regrets having woken up now. She's listening to Blair monologue about the traumatic time her dad forced her to get a pony that wasn't the pony of her choosing.
Yeah. But I did actually enjoy the fact that, so since we've been spending so much time in the lounge, we do get a close look at the games that they have.
Yes.
So I noticed that they had a game called Probe.
Did you look it up?
I thought, wow, that's such an aggressive name for a board game. Yeah, I looked it up. It's a cross between Hangman and Scrabble.
Scrangman.
Yeah. Scrangman.
I like it. That sounds interesting. I noticed that they had 2 copies of Monopoly, which I thought was weird because it's like there's never going to be a run on Monopoly. Like if multiple people want to play Monopoly, they're lucky that there's going to be enough people for a game.
True.
They also had something that was called. Let me see if I can find it in my notes. Here it is. It is called the Lizbeth Whiting Easy to Do Giant Paper Flower Maker, the 1973 edition, which you can get for like $13 on eBay.
So going back to Probe.
Yes.
And this game, as I said, it's a cross between Hangman and Scrabble. It was created by some dude who was like, and I Googled it very briefly because I was like, this isn't that interesting. But it was created by a man who recognized the quote, the limitations of Scrabble and wanted to create some brand new game that without the limitations of Scrabble. And I'm sort of like, what? Anyway.
Like Upwards. You remember that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That really directly attacks the limitations of Scrabble, if you ask me, because now you can go a whole other way up.
Yeah, completely. But during the pandemic, I did buy Scrabble because what else am I gonna do? And because my husband has always been very proud of the fact that he is very good at Scrabble, and so we've been playing a lot of Scrabble, and I always thought of myself as not a very good Scrabble player, but I actually am a very good Scrabble player. Shock of all shocks. But yesterday we were playing. Was it yesterday? No, maybe it was the day before that. Anyway, this weekend. And honest to God, if it were a Scrabble word, I would have played it. But I kept just getting queef over it. I just kept getting more and more ease. So I just had queef.
Well, I imagine that's worth a lot of points.
If it was an official word,
isn't
it's
it?
Not.
Are you sure?
It's not in the dictionary. Queef? No.
I don't know. They add stupid words every year now. Queef should definitely have made the cut a couple of years back.
It should have, but it hasn't.
I don't know. I'd Google that before I make just giant claims that queef isn't in the dictionary. Anyway, so Blair wakes up Joe, who was sleeping during the pony story, and says, like, give me a read back of today's minutes. And Joe's like, your poodle Bootsy died when you were 6. Not quite, but next season you will meet somebody named Bootsy, played by Jamie Gertz. It's perhaps her greatest role.
No, that's not Jamie Gertz's greatest role. You've frozen. Now you're completely dark.
Yes, the power just went out in my whole building.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to try to finish this podcast because we're so close to the end.
Do you still have...
We're going to do it spooky style.
This is very spooky style. I feel like I'm watching the Blair Witch Project. Exactly.
All right.
You should start crying and snotting on the camera.
Let's try to finish this before all my batteries die. So anyway, we get another time dissolve, another friggin' time dissolve, and then Joe was hypothesizing that if Chad thought Blair was perfect like all the other guys, she'd be so swoony over him.
Yeah.
She doesn't. Anyway, she doesn't know. I know. No. So after an all-night rap session with her bestie, Blair's come to the conclusion that even if she's not perfect, it is not Chad's place to say so. Joe adds that it's hers, and
Yeah.
it's a great moment. I think it justifies the series for me a bit. Only took a little bit of TLC to undo the brainwashing of an abusive boyfriend, and they finally fall asleep, and we get yet another time dissolve.
And then
So it's go ahead.
they wake up and it's 7:22. So that means that Blair is in the clear. And they hug. And then the phone rings. And the audience acts as though a murderer is visible in the shot. Like they act as though like the call is coming from inside the house. Like the audience flips out. They're like, "Oh no. After all that, she's not going to be safe. What if it's Chad?" And Joe answers and is like, "Yeah." And it's Chad.
Yeah, and they just freaking crack the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just
They're laughing
delirious from
like
the night. It's great. I love this moment. I think that they're hilarious together. And then Blair goes, "What does he want?" Which makes me laugh even harder. So she asks what he wants, and he tells her they got a late start, and there's room in the car if she wants to go to the ski trip. Joe asks, "Do you still want to go?" And Blair says, "Yeah," but she doesn't want to go.
mm-hmm.
And then she stiffens, and she says, "I don't want to go."
Yeah.
I think that was the best acting we've had out of Lisa Welchel so far this series.
Nah, I thought that the one when she was trying to convince her mom to, get breast cancer surgery was better. But this one where she actually was like, "I don't want to want him, but I do, but I don't, but I do, but I don't," and then takes the phone from Joe and then hangs up, and then the audience goes wild as though she just escaped from a rapist.
Well, she also did. Blair was like, "Give me the phone," and Joe doesn't move, and she's like, "Give me the phone!" Just like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, here you go."
Yeah.
Also, that she could be the one to hang up on him.
Yes.
And then Joe suggests they take this party upstairs to her bed, and that, my friends, is how scissoring was invented.
Yeah.
That's it. That's our episode. You hated it so much.
Yeah, because nothing happened. Nothing happened.
It still sticks with me what happens. It's a cautionary tale against
No, it
dating
wasn't
assholes.
even a cautionary tale. We didn't even see him do anything really bad except for say, "You know what? Yellow isn't your color and maybe you should cut all your hair off."
He left her at a party for another girl.
Yeah, but you know what? Could we have seen that? Could we have seen that?
It wouldn't have been facts of life if we saw the party that they were talking about.
Fair enough. Okay.
Well,
You
with
mean
that,
it wouldn't have been facts of life had they actually shown us the crucial dramatic moment
yeah,
rather than
exactly.
just talked about it? Yeah, that's true.
Well, until next time, when we will be discussing Mrs. Garrett's blood pressure.
Ooh.
Yes, Mrs. Garrett has some bad blood pressure, and so all the girls decide to make her life better, and by doing that, they make her life absolutely horrible.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Did they send her to jail too?
I think they like crash her car and stuff.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't remember too well. We'll find out. But until next time, I'm going to go enjoy living in darkness and eat all of the ice cream in my apartment before it is ruined.
Good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.